Welcome again to those of you who've joined the Department of Counseling information session. We are just letting people join and we'll get started in a moment. Okay. Again, welcome all of you to the Department of Counseling information session. I am Julie Chronister and my pronouns are she, her. I am the current department chair here in the program. And before we begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that San Francisco State University is located on the occupied Ohlone Ramaytush and the coastal Miwok territories. And we humbly acknowledge that our opportunity to live and work is what it is now called the San Francisco Bay Area is only possible by the sacrifice of many Indigenous people historically, as well as their contributions today. And I'd just like you to invite you to take a moment to reflect on your own relationship with the land where you are joining us from today. So today, I'm really glad you're here. First of all, again, welcome. And let me just share what you can expect today. I'll start with a 20 to 25-minute overview. I'll cover what the degree programs, the specialization and emphasis areas, just an overview of our department, our fieldwork, licensure, and admissions process. And then after that, I'm just going to open it up for questions. So if you can, keep track of things that come up for you as I talk. And then once we get to questions and answers, you can post your questions right in the chat. Please don't post them earlier because I won't see them. So once we get to that point, go ahead and post your questions in the chat. Just a few other things. I want to highlight some accessibility features today. You can turn on closed captioning at any time. The PowerPoint is also closed caption, and there is a transcript that you can also access as well during the meeting and download it. Please note that we are recording the meeting. And also just for accessibility reasons, I'd like to provide a visual of myself. I'm a white woman. I'm wearing a black t-shirt. I have light brown hair at my shoulders, and I have glasses on. At the end of the meeting, I'll also invite you to fill out a satisfaction survey about the information section. So I really appreciate it if you fill that out. Okay, with that said, let's get going here. Just big picture. Who are we? What do we do? And how do we do it? So we are a professional counselor training program. So just like any other professional helping disciplines, albeit social work, psychology, occupational therapy, we are a professional counseling training program. What makes counseling a unique discipline? Well, we focus on mental health, well-being, learning, and life goals. We have a fundamental focus on strengths, growth, and resiliency, and coping with challenges. And issues related to stress, relationships, school, work, and life changes. What makes our, counseling as a professional discipline? We have a clear scope of practice. We are recognized by the American Counseling Association. That is our professional organization. We have a code of ethics, the American Counseling Association Code of Ethics, and we have an accreditation body. So, we are a clear professional discipline with a code of ethics, with an accreditation body, with certifications attached to it, and organizations. And a very particular focus on strengths-based training. The mission of our department, of course, every counseling program is unique and has its own mission. Our mission is to train the next generation of counselor leaders who recognize the liberation of all communities is only possible when an intersectional, participatory, community-driven approach to counseling is practiced. So our training program is grounded in a belief that counseling as a field of practice affords professionals the knowledge and skills needed to carry out social justice work via strength-based healing and wellness, advocacy, critical consciousness development, and action-oriented scholarship and research. So a couple of things about our department. We have 10 full-time tenured track faculty, meaning permanent full-time faculty here. We have about 145 students enrolled at any one time during the year. We admit between 50 and 55 every year, and we graduate between 50 and 55. We are accredited by CACREP, otherwise known as the Council for Accreditation of Counseling and Related Educational Programs. We are also approved by the California Board of Behavioral Sciences for students to pursue license, the licensed marriage and family license and the licensed professional clinical counselor license. And I will get specifically to that as we move along. We are also accredited by the CCTC to provide our school counseling students with the opportunity to get their PPSC or pupil personnel services credentials, which allows school counselors to work in public schools. These are our faculty. Professor Melissa Bowman is our internship coordinator. Dr. Carl Kwan over here, he is working part-time on the path to retirement, but everyone else here is a full-time faculty member in our department. Dr. Toporek is in the career counseling program. Dr. Fitzgerald is the clinical mental health. Dr. Bynes, college counseling. Dr. Martinez, marriage and family. Dr. Strier, school counseling. Dr. Balin, career, Dr. O'Shaughnessy, otherwise known as Dr. O, marriage and family. Myself, I am in the clinical mental health counseling program, and I'm also currently the chair. Dr. Alvarez, college counseling and marriage and family, and Dr. Harper, school counseling. So what do? We train students to become professional counselors. Everyone who comes through this program leaves this program with the opportunity, leaving this program, become a professionally trained counselor and pursue licensure if they so want to. We provide a 60-unit, 20-course counseling curriculum that leads to 3 Master of Science degrees. So we have 3 degrees in our program. We have a Master of Science in Counseling. We have a Master in Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling, and we have a Master in Science in Marriage, Family, and Child Counseling. Sometimes MFCC is also often called MFT, so don't get that confused. The licensure in California is the MFT. So you're going to hear MFCC, MFT, they're the same thing. But these degrees are linked to specific counseling specialization areas, which is something unique to the profession of counseling. There are specialized practice areas, of which we have 5 in our department. And these areas are career counseling, clinical mental health counseling, college counseling, marriage, family, and child counseling, and school counseling. So each of those specializations has a unique focus. However, all of you, once you're admitted into a particular degree program and a specialization, you take many of your courses across the curriculum, and you have anywhere from 2 to 4 classes that have a specialized focus in the special practice area. So again, all students, irrespective of their specialization or degree program, take the same 15 out of 20 courses or 45 out of 60 units. The other 15 vary by specialization. So this is a really important piece, because when you apply, you want to make sure that you are choosing the right degree program and specialization area when you apply. Okay, and this can be confusing. So there are 3 degrees. But within each of those degrees, the Master of Science in Counseling has 3 specializations under it. So if you're interested in school counseling, you are going to apply to the MS in Counseling with a specialization in school counseling. If you're interested in college or career counseling, you're going to apply to the MS in Counseling with a specialization in career or college. The other 2, the MS in Clinical Mental Health Counseling is a specialization in clinical mental health. There's only that in there. And then the MS in Marriage, Family, and Child, the specialization is Marriage, Family, and Child. So just want that to be very clear. If you're interested in college, career, or school, you would apply to the MS in counseling. If you're interested in our clinical mental health, you apply to the MS in clinical mental health. If you're interested in the marriage and family, you would apply to the MS in marriage and family. All of you take these 3-unit courses, right? So everybody, no matter what specialization you're in, you're going to take this curriculum, with the exception of marriage and family, do not have crisis in their curriculum. But all of these other courses you take, doesn't matter which specialization you're in, you take these core foundational counseling classes: assessment, group counseling, addictions, lifespan theories. Everyone does field work, which I'll get to. And so something important to know, the specializations are not, 5 different curriculums. Each specialization has a few specialized classes, and you do your field work aligned with your specialization, but you're taking classes across the program with all peers from different specializations. Here's just a window into the specialized classes. So if you are interested in career counseling, right, you're going to take those classes I just showed you, and you would also take Counseling 721, which is applied career counseling, 727, which is advanced career counseling, and then you get to choose one of these others. I know there's a lot of numbers, don't worry about it, but just to kind of give you a window into how this works, that you take those other courses, and then you have anywhere from 3 to, with marriage and family, 4 specialized courses related to that specialization. Okay, so everyone applies to and is admitted to a specific degree program and specialization first and foremost. Okay, so when you apply, you're going to apply to a degree and a specialization. You can also apply to what we call an emphasis. It's kind of like a major and minor, what we call it specialization and emphasis. The emphasis, you can apply for it. Because you get into the specialization doesn't necessarily mean you'll also get into the emphasis. You're applying to both. But you might, for example, let's say you're applying to the college counseling program, and career counseling is really important knowledge area, working in that context. So you might apply for the emphasis in career, right? Similarly, you might apply for the career, which is a burgeoning area. There's so much going on with career counseling and what's going on in our world. You might apply for the career counseling program, but also want a clinical mental health emphasis, right? So you can do that. However, just note, and this is all over the application, the marriage and family cannot be an emphasis, and I will talk about that. In order to be in the marriage and family, get your license in marriage and family in the state of California, you have to graduate from a program that has in the degree title marriage, family, and child counseling. Therefore, if you want the LMFT and you are going into our program, you have to be admitted into the MFT program. All of our other programs help you pursue the other licensure, which I will also get to. But just so you know, MFCC cannot be an emphasis. It can only be a specialization. Practicum, we have a 2-year fieldwork sequence. So 1 year at one field placement and another year at another field placement. So field placement hours really range, but minimally, you're on the site because we have a 2-year field placement program, and all of the specializations, with the exception of school, require a total of 700 hours. School requires 900 hours. So over 2 years, you really are on your site anywhere from 10 to 15 hours a week. Now, it can get more if the site requires it. So there's some negotiation, but minimally we require the first year, 8 to 12 hours, the second year, 10 to 15 hours. But some sites, field training sites, require more hours. So it really varies. These are mostly unpaid, unfortunately. Some of our training partners are starting to offer stipends, but that is something for you to know up front. It is painful to say, but the majority of our training sites do not pay their interns. While you're on your training site, you also take a course. So you're out in your field work and you're also taking a course, with a faculty member while you're in your field placement. And we have a whole field placement program. We have an internship coordinator. We have upwards of 240 training partners. You all have to secure the site, but we do a lot in the behind the scenes to help you get the site, secure it, and provide you with lots of support. We have an array of faculty department supports. We have faculty advising. Everybody that comes into our program has a faculty member that they're advisor. We have a peer mentoring project. We have a Flourishing Counseling Student Association. We have a recently started Spanish speaking student support group. And we also have a really strong internship coordination and support. Our field placement program has lots of supports around it, as I was just mentioning. There's lots of university supports, and this is just a brief window into it. We have disability programs and resource center. We have, equity inclusion department. We have a whole graduate studies that provides a lot of research for just graduate students around funding your education, finding housing, international students, career supports, resume supports. We have a counseling and psychological services. We have student health services. We have food, shelter, and success services. There's a lot of services on our campus. I wanted to say for many years, we've had various stipends to help students get through their program, and they would be training stipends, and they were funded by the federal government. As many of you know, many of these these funding streams are being pulled back. So we have lost the majority of our federal training grants that fund stipends, unfortunately. It's painful to share. So unfortunately, these next upcoming years, we won't have any training stipends. We do have some department scholarships, and the university also has a whole host of scholarships on their website. So if you go into if you just Google SFSU scholarships, you can find the website. And I encourage students, if they are admitted to the program, to start looking for scholarships early, right? If you're going to want to get financial aid, get your FAFSA done, do that stuff early, and get that stuff going, because it can take some time. So, I'm not an expert on the financial aid piece, and all of that, but I can certainly help people navigate it. But I highly encourage you to go on our website. We have a whole financial aid and scholarship website, and I think it's really good to start looking at that if you want to begin to figure out your finances. While we are a public institution and we are one of the cheapest professional counseling training program in the Bay Area, it's still expensive, right? You all know that. You're in San Francisco. Tuition for a year is about $10,000, but putting in all the costs of living, we're talking $40,000, right? So it is unfortunate, it's expensive, and so you have to just know that up front. And it's painful to say that we've lost a lot of our federal grants as well to provide stipends. So get yourself comfortable with the financial aid site and the tuition and all of that stuff early on. So how do we do it? How do we train counselors? Well, practically speaking, this is important information. We are not a night program. We are not an evening program. We're not an online program. We are, for better or worse, a fairly traditional program. And so it can be hard. The classes are 9:30 to 12:15, 12:30 to 3:15, 4 to 6:45, and we really don't have many night classes anymore. We used to offer a few, but most of our classes are between 9:30 and 7. The majority of our classes are in person. We do have a handful of online or hybrid courses, but you have to plan for being on campus 2, maybe 3 days a week, coming to in class in person, and and doing your internship. We have worked really hard to develop a schedule where you only have to be on campus, hopefully 2 days, and then you do your internship if you're doing your internship. But sometimes it's 3 days. 40 to 50%, I would say this is going up. We do not have as many lecture faculty anymore. The university is also, like many higher ed, going through a budget crisis, but the majority of our classes are taught by tenure track faculty, with a handful taught by lecture faculty. Okay, so there's a couple ways to do this. Some students do this program in 2 years. I don't personally recommend that, but I know it's, for some, you have to do it for financial reasons. But if you do a 2-year program, you're taking 5 classes a semester and you're actually doing your internship the minute you start the program. So it can be an intense program. A small proportion of our students do it. 24% about, the majority, 62%, complete this program between 3 and 3.5 years, and 14% more. Again, recommend, if possible, that you do it in 3 years, but we do have a structure that allows you to do it in 2 years. We also offer summer classes, but we can never guarantee summer classes, because summer classes can only run with a certain amount of students, and whether we have the people to teach it. But historically, we have been offering summer classes for many, many years. So that can be helpful for students trying to get through the program quick. Yeah. Okay, licensure. We are a professional counseling training program, and if you're familiar with California and the licensure here, there are 2 counseling licensures in the state of California. The LMFT, Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist, that's been around for a long time. That is the oldest counselor licensure, and the most well-known. The other one, which became a license, I think, in 2010, is a parallel license. Why do we have these 2 licenses? That's a whole conversation in and of itself. But the LPCC and the LMFT are the 2 counselor licenses that our students pursue, and I highly recommend getting. I would not go through this program and do all this work and not position yourself for licensure. So irrespective of what degree and specialization program you go through, you can always get your LPCC. You may have to take an extra course. You may have to, I'll talk about that. The only program that positions you for the LMFT is the MFCC program. So just hold that if you need to ask questions about it later. But if you want your LMFT through our program, you have to be in that program. You have to graduate from a program with MFT in the degree title. If you want the LPCC, and both of these are on the parity. The reason why the LPCC passed, in short, is that it has parity with the rest of the country that have LPC and LPCC, and it is aligned with the rest of the country's licensure. It's structured the same way. It is the one license that allows you more easily to move and get licensed in another state. The LMFT is not what we call portable, because you collect half your hours before you graduate. So there are some of our students in the MFT program get both, but just know that's our current structure. Our program also, I mentioned this earlier, prepares school counselors for their PPSC. So if you want to work in K through 12 public schools, you're in our school counseling program, we position you for that as well. So just briefly, the clinical mental health counseling program, the CMHC program, we call it, meets all the state requirements to register for the LPCC. So everything you need to apply for the LPCC is in this MS and clinical mental health counseling curriculum, meaning once you finish our program, you can apply for the LPCC and you've done all the requirements because the board has approved it. If you're in the MS in counseling, which is a school, college, and career specialization, it meets all but one course. So if you go through that program, you have to take an additional psychopharm course to register. We offer psychopharm, it's just not in the 60-unit program. If there's space, you can usually take it in our department. It often happens that way. You can also take it outside. So the MFCC program, you have to take both crisis and psychopharm if you want both your MFT and your LPCC. I know this is a lot of information, but just know that it doesn't take a whole lot extra to get your LPCC for any of these degrees. Okay. The clinical mental health, nothing extra. MS in counseling, one extra course, which we do offer. And if there's space, you can take it. And then MFCC, you're getting your MFT, but if you also want the LPCC, you have to take the psychopharm crisis. That's how that works. I think I just kind of went all through this, but, you know, post-graduation, there are some differences, and I'm not going to get into what you need to do to get your license after you graduate, but you know, most license, when you graduate, you have to start collecting what we call associate hours, right? You become this associate intern. And so you become an APCC or an AMFT, and you have to collect hours. The LPCC, you have to collect 3,000. The MFT, you can collect some hours before you graduate through your field work, and so you have to collect less. That's great, except for if you want to move to another state, it won't be portable at all. So that's the downside of that. That's why many students want both. There really isn't one better or worse than the other. They're just two counselor licenses. Just a few things. I think I would just jot this down. If you want to learn more about the LPCC, California LPCC is the organization. It's called CalPIC. I would look at that. If you want to look at the California organization for the MFT, I would look at what we call CAMF. You can also go on the Board of Behavioral Sciences and you know, look up these licenses. But the CalPIC and CAMF are really useful if you really want to learn about what does it take to get my license? What do I need to do? How does it work? And it's a professional organization in California, so they can be quite helpful. They have conferences, they have networking, they have all kinds of resources for students pursuing these licenses. Okay, admissions. I know we're getting close to 6:30. Admissions are due December 15th. That means your application is due December 15th, 2025. We will notify you of admissions status no later than April 1. Maybe it'll be earlier, but by April 1. If you are admitted, we have a new student orientation May 1st, and then the fall semester starts August 24th. Okay, admissions. So first and foremost, you review our website. And I'm not going to tell you our website or SFSU's website is perfect. There are problems. Sometimes it feels like it's hard to navigate, but I encourage you to persist. The university has information. The Cal State, you have to turn in a Cal State, that's supposed to say Cal State Apply, not APPY. The Cal State Apply application, and then you also have the Department of Counseling application. But go onto our website, click through it. You'll be able to see all the things you need to submit that application. And I'm just going to go briefly through what's conceptually required here. You have a self-statement or a personal essay, okay? And I'll show you the statement, but put some thought into it. You have to provide your transcripts, right? All the transcripts from your prior academic record and educational experiences. You have to provide 2 letters of recommendations. Please, not friends or family or therapists. Please, they need to be, you know, an instructor, a supervisor in a work. It needs to be a professional, and we do outline what they should share. This piece over here, counseling related work or volunteer experience and just work experience. That's another one. And then just talk about, you know, we do ask you about things related to, cultural diversity in your essay. One thing that's important to know, if you are applying to the MFCC or the clinical mental health counseling programs, you must have 2,000 hours of paid or unpaid human services experience by the time of your application in order for it to be reviewed. We believe that this is really important, given that students are entering into the field quickly and working in highly, complex environments with individuals with complex backgrounds. So just, this is on our website, and I just put it up here. But please, if you are applying to either of these degree programs, the marriage and family or clinical mental health, please be sure that you have human service work experience, which is defined as work that involves helping people directly with difficulties related to mental health, housing, education, employment, substance use, systemic adjustments, poverty, family conflict, goes on. And we've given a list of work settings. So that is an important thing to think about. Don't submit your application to one of these degree programs if you don't have paid or unpaid human service experience. Here's our personal statement. It's on the website. These are the prompts. Please be sure that you write this. We recognize there's many different tools out there, whether it's AI or a friend or whoever. We're pretty good at figuring out if you've written it, and you do need to sign an affidavit saying that you've written it. So, it's fine to have someone proof it, but please be thoughtful and authentic and write this yourself. Coursework that's relevant. Maybe some of you have been in the SF state already. That we do have a minor in counseling here. So if you've taken counseling 690 or 691 or any other courses here at state, obviously that's important and we will see it. But other relevant courses, if you haven't taken, if you're not a psychology undergrad, which you don't have to be, but let's say you're thinking about taking some courses, these are some other relevant courses that can, be helpful to your application. We don't require the GRE. Admissions, just so you know, this was for 24, fall 25. Career, 25% of our applicants we take in. Clinical mental health, 7%. We have a lot of applications, just being upfront. So, think about, do you have experience? Think about your readiness for grad school. Be thoughtful about your essay, but we have upwards of 1,000 applicants each year. So I encourage all of you to apply and also to really be thoughtful about, am I ready for this? Can I do this for 3 years? Is this right for me? And be clear about, your application. Do everything you can to make sure it's sort of easy for us, if there aren't the references there, we can't review it. If the work requirement isn't there, we're not going to review it, right? And so do your best to really read through the application process and follow the guidelines. Just finally, again, check out our website, check the instructions on the online application. If you can't find the answer, you can certainly email us at apply.msc@sfsu.edu. And that's going to be it for my talk. And then I'm going to open it up to questions. But if you don't mind, there is a survey, and this is just really helpful for us to know who's interested. You don't have to answer every question. But if you don't mind filling out the survey, I'd be so appreciative. And with that said, I'm going to take my screen off. I'll put the survey link in the chat as well. But begin to put your questions in the chat. Okay. Let's see. All right, here we go. I'm just putting the survey link in the chat as well. Okay. Can you have a different emphasis with the specialization of MFCC? Yes, you can have an MFCC as a specialization and apply for an emphasis. Good question, right? So let's say I want to be in the MFT program. I want to get the LMFT license. I have to apply to that degree program, but I'm also really interested in career counseling, right? So I'm also going to apply for an emphasis in career. Yes, you can do that. Do you have any tips for the personal statement? We want to get to know you, you know? We want to get to know why this program is a good alignment with you and why you're a good alignment with our program. We want to get a sense that you kind of know what field you're applying for, you know? We want to know, we want it to be, we recognize everyone's different with their writing styles, but it certainly makes it easier when it's accessible and we don't have to read it several times to get to the content. So obviously what you can do to put it in a format that makes it flow. But we have very clear prompts, I think, that I showed. And, you know, we want to know about your lived experience and how it contributes to your decision around wanting to pursue counseling, just big picture. On the Cal State Apply, how do we put our emphasis? I'm trying to picture what it would. Katsufumi, are you there? In the Cal State Apply, how do we put our emphasis? It should be pretty straightforward, but let me think about that one. I don't have it in front of me.
Sorry, bathroom break.
Oh no, sorry. Katsufumi, do you know
Yeah.
how we
So,
where oh, go ahead.
So open up Cal State Apply account, and then there are 4 sections. By the way, Cal State Apply includes a department application. So all you have to need is just submit the Cal State Apply. There is no additional department application. It's built in. And when you get to the department application called the program materials, there is a space that you need to enter. What is your intended specialization? And also, if you're thinking about adding emphasis, what is the intended emphasis? That's when you define actually what you're applying for.
Yeah, hopefully that answered that. Thank you, Katsufumi. Our applications due December 15th, 2025 or January 15th, 2026, or due December 15th, 2025. If I have a master's in psychology, but not 2,000 hours, I still don't qualify. Yeah, so you need, it depends on if you're applying to the MS in counseling program, which is the school, career, and college, you don't need the 2,000 hours. If you're applying to the clinical mental health or the marriage and family program, you need the 2,000 hours. I hopped on a bit late and was wondering where the recorded video will be posted. If we do post the recorded video, it will be on the website in the admissions page. What are you looking for in a statement of purpose? I think I spoke to that earlier, but I highly encourage you to review the prompts that we provide. Remind yourself that we really want to get to know you and your lived experience and why that positions you well for this counseling program, and why counseling in general and why our particular program is the right fit for you or alignment with you. Is it possible to get an application fee waiver? Katsufumi, do we have a fee waiver program?
At the end of the Cal State application, you'll be asked. So you can answer that questions, and then the Division of Graduate Study will get back to you.
Yeah. Yeah. If you all can't get to the bottom of that, you can send us an email, but there should be a place on the Cal State Apply. It sounds like they'd ask that. Can you switch specializations after being admitted? No, not easily. It's not, you can't come into our program in one specialization and switch to another. We do admit you based on specialization. So I'm not suggesting that this has never happened before, but it is not typical. And we don't particularly the MFT program, because it's so impacted. Um, and so, you can in some instances, but generally it's not that easy. Um, I'm wondering if you have an idea of how many students in the department work a job outside the practicum, how many hours? Yeah, it's a great question. So first, I just want to name, I recognize, we all as faculty recognize how hard it is to live and work and go to school in the Bay Area. And it is painful how much things cost. And then to do 2 years of unpaid labor is just, can be really painful. Yes, some of our students work. It becomes particularly hard to work while you're doing your internship and you're going to school, particularly if you're trying to do this in 2 years. So some students do it. Sometimes they'll work their first year when they're just taking classes. Other times, once they start their field work, maybe they'll work part-time. So it really varies on the student, right? But just a reminder that if you do this in 2 years, you are starting your field work the fall you start the program. If you do it in 3 years, you take classes your first year, and then you start your field work. And something to tell students also, or individuals interested, if you do come in and you want to do the 2-year program, by the time, it's also hard to even secure an ideal site because you've been admitted and all the current students have already secured their site. So it's not ideal, but students do it. So yeah, students are different, but it is hard to do. It's hard to juggle work. We talk about this a lot during onboarding. How do I juggle work, school, internship? It is not easy. Everybody's different, but it is a puzzle to figure out. I can't really answer how many hours. I mean, I don't think you could do full time. I don't think that's possible while you're interning. However, we do have some students who go very part time for several years. You know, they take 2 classes, they work, and when they finally do their internship, they're not taking any classes. So that's an option too. You can. I think you have 7 years to finish a program. So that's a route as well, where you want to work more and take very few classes. That's possible. Do we accept transfer credits? We do, but we only, at most, I think 9 units, and it has to be only certain classes. They're like our foundational classes, like developmental foundations, um, uh, what else? Psychological foundations and theories of counseling. So in other words, you can't transfer group counseling or you can't transfer assessment, but you can transfer the very foundation classes. Is the 2,000 hours a mandatory requirement for applying? It is for the clinical mental health and the marriage and family, yes. And do the collected hours have to be from a single source? No. Can they be from different sources? Certainly, across a number of years, yes. Would jobs such as working in a retirement home or work as a camp counselor over summers work in terms of jobs within relevant work settings for admissions? Yeah, so I think, important to kind of read and list all the settings. Summer camps is going to be something that we would have to look at. It's not on my list of settings that I think is considered human service, but you could be convincing about it. It really depends. Some camps are different than others, right? If it's I don't know, a soccer camp, probably not. So that's why we are very clear listing of types of settings that constitute human service. I see that educational settings is a place you can have experience. So for example, if I have teaching experience, substitute teaching paraeducator, that would count towards the hours, correct? Should we also have one of our references come from work experience? I may have teaching, teaching is, it really depends on, I certainly have educational settings in there because there's a lot of human services that goes on in educational settings. But teaching itself is not necessarily, I mean, I know it is human behavior, you are interacting. But that's not necessarily falls under human service work. That's its own teaching profession. So when I say educational settings, it has to be human service work in educational settings. And I know this is kind of can be, there's some vague areas. And if you do have particular questions, you can reach out. Let's see. If you want to take only 2 or 3 classes per semester, do you have access to academic? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. Is there anything you look for specifically in applicants for school counseling program in general? Is it common for applicants to be coming straight from undergrad? We have students from various life spaces. Certainly some are coming not far out of undergrad. Others have taken a handful of years off or a few years. I think the school counseling, one thing about the school counseling program, school counseling, even more so than the other, has a very specific code of ethics, professional organization. It requires 900 hours of internship in different levels of school. So it is a commitment. I mean, school counseling is about working in a K through 12, and in our program, K through 12 public school. I mean, you can work in private schools too, but our field work is we typically like our students to go to public schools. So a school counselor is working in a K through 12 setting. It's a very specific discipline within counseling. There's a code of ethics, professional organization. I've already said that. So, do you want to work in a K through 12? Do you want to be a high school counselor or an elementary school counselor? High schools, and I don't know, middle school, it's not my area, but high schools require school counselors. Middle schools, I think, might. Elementary schools don't. But I think you have to really want to be in the school, in a K through 12 setting for sure. If you want to take only 2 to 3 classes per semester, do you have access to academic counseling or someone? Oh, absolutely. I mean, everybody has an advisor. We meet with you. You have to meet with us at least once to help you register. And we have a very prescribed curricular sequence that says this is what you have to take in order to move along. And so, yes, absolutely. Can you submit an additional letter for a total of 3? No, we only read 2, so please just submit 2. How do you select the candidates? Well, we all as faculty review all the applications, and we have a very clear rubric, and we look at self-statement, we look at your prior educational experience, we look at work and volunteer experience, we look at your, did I say self-statement? The graduate school of CSUs requires everyone to have a 3.0 to be accepted. We can write an argument and argue if someone is admitted under a 3.0, but that is generally like your application will be flagged if it's under a 3.0 by the grad studies. And if we feel that you are a very strong candidate, we can make an argument for it. But that's the other thing. I mean, our review is not all about GPA. It's not all about, your letters of rec. It's a multi-pronged approach. It's a holistic thing, and we look at the big picture, and we take all the applications very seriously and spend a lot of time on it. How much is prior coursework considered in an application? Do CCS? Yeah, I mean, prior course, yeah, I think. So again, we're looking at this whole picture, and nobody has a perfect picture, right? Some people might have areas where, oh wow, I've got all kinds of courses in the larger field of human services. I was a psychology major. I was this, that, and the other thing. Others may be coming from, business, and but yet they've been working in human services for a while. And so you have to kind of look at your application and say, okay, could I, now we require human service requirement for 2 degrees, but even so, like for the MS in counseling, maybe you want to get some volunteer experience if you're lacking in experience, right? For 2 of these degrees, you have to have experience to even apply. But coursework is certainly considered. It's part of your educational background and experience, right? But we're not necessarily saying you have to have these courses to get in, right? We're looking at the whole picture and who you are and what you bring and your readiness. Is there a specific specialization that I can apply for that can lead to a dual licensure? So yeah, if you want the both MFT and the LPCC, you have to be in the MFT program. Because in order to get the MFT, you have to go through our MFCC program. You can take a few extra courses, psychopharmacology and crisis, and also apply for the LPCC. But you can't be in any other program and get both. All the other programs, you can get the LPCC. Is the department application embedded through Cal State Apply or is it separate? I think Katsufumi answered. I think it's all in one. Am I right, Katsufumi?
Correct.
Yeah. Where can we read more about the different emphasis options we can choose from? Well, our website talks about all of our, think about this. We have 5 practice areas or specializations, right? We have college counseling, career counseling, clinical mental health counseling, school counseling, and marriage, family, and child counseling. Those are our 5, think about it as practice areas. All of them can be emphases except for the marriage, family, and child counseling, right? So you can read about any of them as if you were reading about a specialization. Just go on our website and look at the specialization areas, right? Let's say I am dead set on pursuing clinical mental health, but I also kind of see myself like I need that. I want to be in a college setting, but I want to be a mental health counselor in a college setting, right? So, the thing about having an emphasis though is it adds more classes to your program. It adds some requirements for field work. And so there is no way you can come into our program being admitted to a specialization with an emphasis and get this done in 2 years. We can't honor that. It's too many courses. So it's gonna be a 3-year program, unless you somehow manage to get everything crammed in there, but it's very hard. So if you're going to apply and you get admitted to both your specialization and emphasis, you have to realize that your emphasis has additional coursework and fieldwork requirements. Typically, you can count hours for both, but you have to be at a site that does both, right? So if you want to do mental health in college, you could be in a college setting doing mental health, right? But you have to be in a setting that allows you to apply both of those areas. And we're very clear about which settings those are. I hope that helps. When does the application open up? Isn't it open, Katsufumi?
October 1st.
Oh, sorry. October 1st. I've just been chair for 1 year, so I'm still learning a bit. So thank you all for being patient. I didn't catch this. How many hours of our internship practicing count toward licensure for, yeah. So they will allow you to count half of the total hours they require. So licenses typically require 3,000 hours before you can sit for the final exam to become licensed, right? So think about it that way. The Board of Behavioral Sciences in California says you could collect half of those, which is what, 1,500 prior to when you graduate. But you're not going to get 1,500 in our department because you don't do 1,500 hours. You might get 800 or 900 most, right? But we require, particularly for MFT, you have to get 700 total hours, 280 direct, but 700 total. So, you'll get a chunk of it. Maybe you do more. And maybe you get 800 or 900. Does that make sense? I hope. Have you had veterans in the program? How has the experience been? Absolutely, we've had veterans. And how is the experience for them? I mean, we have a pretty, SF State has a strong commitment to our veterans, and even in Burke Hall, we have a whole room committed to that. Last year, I know I can count at least 3 or 4 students who were veterans. How has their experience been for them? I mean, I think everybody's student experience. I can't say that it was negative. I didn't hear that. And they were thrilled to graduate, and my experience was they had a good experience. Grad school is hard, it can be a lot to juggle. But I think there is support for our veterans on this campus, if that's what this question is about. And there are plenty of veterans on this campus I see every day when I walk in and I walk by the room, in the classroom. And we certainly have had veterans, and we've had students who go on to work for the VA who come through our program and have a commitment to working, you know, in the military as a counselor. So absolutely. Now, do we have very specialized training to working in the military? No. You know, because we just can't do that. But we for sure, we've had prior, when we had a re-up counseling program, we had many students doing their field work at the VA. It really depends on if they have someone to provide the counseling, and anyway, but absolutely. For students interested in the MS in counseling, school counseling specialization, do you have any examples of internship sites for this specialist? For instance, oh yeah, we're partnered all over with OUSD and SFUSD and all the other USDs, you name it. We've had one huge school-based mental health training grant that funded students to do training in OUSD and SFUSD that just got pulled from us. But yes, absolutely. We work with them they are critical training partners. We work with Jefferson Union. We work with Alameda, Contra Costa, Berkeley, USC, you know, we work with many of them. Should you take 3 suggested courses, lifespan theories and abnormal? If you have not, as part of your application, I personally have taken 2. Yeah, again, we don't require certain courses. You are the one, step back and look at your application. Do you think it'll strengthen it? Certainly courses that are aligned with our curriculum are probably good, particularly if you've come from a different field completely, or you have kind of holes in your transcript and you want to show, hey, I can get through this class. It's a good idea to take them. But again, you don't have to, you know, take them. Is the 2,000-hour requirement? Yes, it is new this year. Can the letters of recommendation be the same for Cal State Apply and the counseling department? Yeah, you only have 2 letters of rec, period. How do you consider letters of rec? The same way, we have 5 areas, right? And so they're all kind of weighted, right? You've got your self-statement, your letters of rec, your academic experience, your, what am I missing here? I know your work and volunteer experience. So, you know, we look at everything. It's not one is more than the other. But, you know, again, help your, you know, most people who gets letters of rec, their recommendation person is going to support them, but you might also help them understand what you're trying to get into, right? You can help your person who's writing your rec be thoughtful about what goes in, and to help them write the letter. And we have guidelines around that, right? Does the application include any questions about other program candidates? Does the application include any questions about other programs candidates are applying to? Are you able to speak to how? Trying to understand. Does the application include any questions about other programs candidates are applying to? Are you asking, like, do we ask you if you're applying to other counseling programs? We have no idea where else you're applying, if that's what you're asking. We don't ask about that. Yeah, I think that if someone wants to chime in, I think they're asking, do we ask about where else you're applying to? No, we don't. And we can't factor that in. We don't know where people are applying to. What is the teaching learning style you emphasize in classes? Oh boy, yeah, that could be a whole conversation, but you know, we try to make sure we're accessible and universal design, but a lot of, you know, this is a counseling program. There's very experiential courses. There's, we do, our application is very important. Yes, absolutely. Role playing. There's group presentations. There's lecturing. There's, you name it. But you know, this is a particular counseling training program. You're not going to have a class. It's mostly just someone standing up and lecturing. You're going to be engaged in it. There's going to be application. There's going to be experiential activities. There's going to be You're going to be talking about people you're working with out in the field, right? So, yeah. How many transfer credits do you accept? I think it's 9. And what does that process look like? You have to, if you're going to ask for credits, we need to see the syllabi, you need to see the transcript. If it's very clear what the classes are and you have the transcript, it'll probably, but it can only be our 700 theories of counseling, our developmental foundations, and our psychological foundations, those 3 classes. This is specific to me, but I work in higher ed. Would that qualify with relevant work experience? It really depends on what you're doing in higher ed. Um, educational settings can be a place where you do human service work, but you can work in an educational setting and not do human service work. So I think that's what you have to reflect on. Does tuition costs differ between the 2-year? Well, it costs more because you're in school for another year, right? So I think tuition is typically, I don't know, 4,800 a semester. So it's about 10,000 a year. So if you go 2 years, it's 20,000. If you go 3 years, it's 30,000. Now the question really becomes full-time, part-time, and how that is adjusted. Full-time as a grad student, I think, is anything over 6.1 units. So that is, for all intents and purposes, in our program is 3 classes. So if you only take 2 classes, you're part-time. And so you have to sort of figure out what that looks like. After you graduate and need the 3,000 hours toward the LPCC, are those usually paid, or do you need? No, they're paid. Once you graduate, you are a professional counselor. You do not take a job and not get paid. You're going to ask for $85,000 minimally, right? Like, our students, I know that's not even that much, but our students are, coming out and getting jobs. And I tell them today, do not take under 85,000. Absolutely. You're what they call an associate, right? And you're working towards your licensure. You have to have, if you want license, you need to be under the supervision of someone who will sign off. Oh boy, how would you say SFSU counseling program? Did I just miss something? How would you say SFU's counseling program differs from SEO Masters in Clinical Psych? Yeah. We are different. Clinical psychology and counseling are two different disciplines. Okay, so psychology is a discipline, counseling is a discipline. Yes, we have shared knowledge areas for sure. Psychology is very much part of counseling as well, in terms of you learning about human behavior, for sure. But counseling has a curriculum that is aligned with becoming a professional counseling. Clinical psychology has a curriculum that's aligned. And a master's in clinical psychology, again, I don't teach in it, but clinical psychology historically is very much about pathology. And I think it is changing, like any discipline in our area, but it's very much about pathology and working with people with pretty severe psychiatric conditions. And so master level clinical psych, maybe assessment they do, but they're not professional counselors. Yes, they both lead to the LMFT. You can get your master's there and get your LMFT, but you are not trained as a professional counselor. You have a master's in clinical psych with a license. So I would encourage you to look at that curriculum. You will see the difference, in terms of the type of courses you take. How much of your program focuses on veteran mental health? Do you have any affiliations with the VA? I think I was talking about that earlier. Again, there's so many specialization areas around so many communities and populations, right? The clinical mental health program is a program I am affiliated. We have a strong sort of focus on disability and community mental health and psychiatric rehabilitation. That just happens to be our thing. That's what my area is and my colleagues. It really has to do with veteran mental health. Certainly will come into it in different contexts, but we don't have a specific training to position you to do mental health with veterans, but we're always trying to apply things to different communities and populations and individuals who seek out mental health services. And yes, the VA can be a practicum site as long as they meet our requirements, and they have in the past. It really depends on if they have someone there to supervise a counselor. Do you need verification of work experience? What if you worked for an organization that doesn't exist anymore? Yeah, I mean, I think, look at the application. There's a place where you put your work, fill it out, do everything you can to show where you worked. And that's, there's a level of trust in your application that we expect. You know, if we have questions about it, we'll pursue and we'll try, you know, there's different ways we can sort of figure things out. I don't recollect you embellish things or that kind of thing. Which I'm not suggesting anyone would, you know. I'm an older student. If my 2000 hours are not recent, will I still be considered? Yeah, it really, if things are really, really old, but yes, you might also email us if you have questions. You know, it can depend if it's like it just really depends. We'd prefer it to be within the last 10 years. Um, but if you have questions about that, you can email us. What do you specifically look for in the CV? I think we're pretty clear about what to include in your CV. You know, we just want a snapshot of your work and your education experience. Just like a CV you would submit for a job. Demographics of students. Yeah, we have, I would probably say, I don't know, 60 to 70% of our students identify as a student of color. We have a large percentage of students who are bilingual and multilingual. We have a number of first-gen students. We have a growing number of students with disabilities. Our student body is diverse, for sure. And from, I think, you know, from our communities. And we also have students from out of state. So I would say, you know, we are in the Bay Area, but comparatively, I would say we are a pretty culturally diverse student body. I'm assuming tutoring, nanny, and childcare would not qualify. Yeah, no, that wouldn't work. Can you take classes and other emphases without being enrolled? If there's room, you can, you know, if there's room in the class. If I were to apply to the MFCC, a specialization, would I need a particular emphasis to get my LPCC? No, you don't. You just need to make sure you take psychopharm and crisis counseling. Any practicum sites outside of SF? Yes, we do. Absolutely. Contra Costa, Alameda, South Bay, North Bay, you name it. Ideally, we don't like students to be so far. Like, really, in theory, I think we've said no more than 30 miles. Sometimes we're flexible, especially with telemental health. But yeah, they're all over the Bay Area. Are there options to do coursework between the application deadline and fall 20 options to do coursework? Yeah. I don't know if you mean coursework in the program if you were admitted. Some students, if they're admitted, can take a summer class if it works in their curriculum. Um, Raising your GPA, maybe take a class. I know the application is coming up, but that's something to think about, taking, you know, a class or two to raise your GPA. I think most importantly to talk about it. There are places in the application where we actually say, if you've had some difficulties in your academic experience, explain it, talk about it. You can talk about it in your essay, you can talk about it. There's a section where you can talk about it. If you do the 3-year program, are you taking more units than in the 2-year program? No. I mean, if you're doing an emphasis, you are, but you're just spreading it out. You're not taking 5 classes a semester. You're taking 3 or 4 a semester. If you're doing an emphasis, then it is more classes. It's the same amount of units spread over time, but it's still going to cost more because 3 units, 3 classes and 5 classes cost the same. Does that make sense? So it's not this substantial difference in terms of like, you're going to pay the same amount whether you take 5 classes or 3 classes, if that makes sense. So it's going to cost more for the 3rd year because you're enrolled in school. You know what I mean? Can you get the CMHC emphasis without wanting to get the license? Yeah, you have to be admitted to the emphasis. I see on the summary of experience form, it asks for your supervisor name. Should we also include the supervisor contact? For sure, if you can. Can we be finishing the 2000 hours by the time fall starts or when the application is due? Fall starts. You know, the way we have it set up is it's due when you apply. Which specialization should I email for clarification on hours, or is it a general department? I mean, you can ask what you mean, if you want to put in the chat. I think we're almost done. It's 7:11, so I'm going to wrap up. But what which specialization should I email for clarification on hours? Oh, if my oh. Yeah, I think just the general department. Yeah, I would do that. Yeah. So I've gone over a bit and I want to honor people's I know this can feel a bit like, I'm just looking out of counseling at SFSU. I think the apply, hold on. Let's see. I'll put okay. Um okay. Thank you all for coming. Again,
Judy, two things.
read through the application from top to bottom. Huh?
Judy, two things. Before you guys go, I
Yeah.
just want to say two things. This is a pretty important.
Yeah.
Application hasn't opened yet,
Yeah.
but I would strongly encourage you to visit our website and read through admission instruction requirement. Just take your time to go through. If you don't have, if you don't understand some sentence or words, just email us, clarify before you start doing anything, because you're gonna save a lot of time. The people who don't read it, instructions, they wind up in doing more, which is unnecessary work, and we don't even look at it. So please be sure to read through admission instruction and the requirement and the site. And then the last thing, start working on the financial aid. It's not too early because they do run out in April. And every year there are several conditional admitted applicants who missed out the chance. They don't have a financial aid, they're out. We don't defer admission, so they have to give up. So I don't want you to be in that situation. So start working on a financial aid right now, FAFSA. Any financial aid is available. Start contacting a financial aid officer. You can have an advisor. So, tomorrow you can call up, you can start looking at our SFSU financial aid website. And if you have any question, just ask them. And then get the financial aid as soon as possible. If you don't get in, just in case, you can always return it. But not the vice versa. If you get into the program, they run out of the financial aid, you're out of luck. This happens, believe it or not, this happens every year. There's always two or three conditionally admitted applicants who don't have a financial aid and they have to pass it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for that, Katsufumi. And I just put the financial aid link in the chat, and I'm also putting in the scholarship link website as well. It's called Academic Works, and you need to go through and, scholarships are there's certain criteria that some may work for you, some may not. Some can be 2,000, 1,000, 10,000, they vary but worth looking at now, if you're trying to plan. Okay, my friends, it was lovely seeing the boxes and some of your faces. Yeah, I know this is a lot of information to take in. And again, email apply_msc@sfsu if you have questions, and I wish you all the best of luck. And again, reach out if you have questions. And thank you for coming. And take care of yourselves, everyone. And I will just sit here until everybody, zooms away.